Namaskar. It is believed by a lot of people that reading is essential to learning, or knowing one of which is the ways to read is essential to learning, and merely knowing is the only gateway. Reading, which leads to knowing, has to undergo a process of assimilation into our mindset. All these books that we are reading, every CEO is reading 60 books a year. It's just, certain people are advertising that, if you read, you learn and you know. How much does it apply to spiritual growth, spiritual, the progress in the spiritual path? So, it is fashionable, or maybe it's a common pattern for a lot of people to read a lot of things. And since not everything applies in every situation, and since the understanding is not developed that all this knowledge is coming from the same source, but it is very well disguised, it is very hard to say what is applicable where, because we are beings of ego, we are beings with mind. And so, when our roles are different in different situations, without sometimes our knowing how we are acting in one situation, and me being the same person can be acting different in different set of circumstances, at that time what kind of wisdom is useful to you, and depends upon what kind of source or book it is coming from. So let us understand it by an example of gears. If we are engineers, we some of us can be engineers. We know gears engage with each other, they have teeth. So every gear, it's running on a wheel, and it engages, and then it moves on the next one. So to apply the right knowledge to the right situation, the gear should be meshed properly. But if we are in a situation and we don't know out of which set of our information, which book to apply, so the information being one cog, and the situation being one cog, and the information being the other, we don't know which information to apply where. Even if, and the more books we read, in certain conditions we become more confused. Sometimes it's because of the authors, which are talking not from a universal standpoint but from a limited point of view, from a contextual point of view. And there are many such books which actually click to us in that time. But in the long run, we find that okay, we can apply the information, the knowledge from coming from these books to a very specific set of circumstances. So, what exactly is knowledge? If I keep eating something without chewing it, or without my stomach processing it, it takes 3 to 4 hours for my stomach to process food, to get the nutrition, to get the meaning out of it. If there was a section in my stomach which could just eat the food, and because the stomach doesn't have a choice, you eat food, it processes. The brain also doesn't have the choice. You read a book and you think about it, but then you keep pushing more information, turn the page, more information, turn the page, more information. How do we handle this information? How do we process it? So I've been speaking about it for a long time. Taking new information will give us ego, that we know a lot, but a lot of us don't know how to use what we know, and we end up getting bloated sense of wisdom, which barely connects with anybody else unless you're a top shot, unless you're a big influencer of any kind. In which case, people will become your yes men because they want to gain proximity with you. But if you're not that, you will see that your knowledge is clashing with everybody else's knowledge, though knowledge is the same. So, my request is that whatever we read, we must meditate upon it. Take a thought, let it soak deeply into your awareness, and knowledge itself will flower from it. Rather than taking ready made knowledge from the books, taking too much knowledge from the books, and in the end using all kind of jargon, getting more and more complicated in the spiraling inside the jargon without realizing that is it really making deep sense without creating ripples of incoherence inside your own psyche. Because with the such ripples of incoherence in your psyche, it's very hard for your own mind to know its stance, and that's why it keeps shifting. It's very hard to be decisive. No, it is not just the situations which are changing, but it is the different things that you read in your different time, which is just flashing as memory. And since brain has this nature, it has no control over itself. Only a calm mind, a calm, deeper sense can control the brain. So, a brain is like a bouncing photon, it will just go everywhere unless we don't know how to direct it. Buddha wrote a lot of books, or a lot of books have been written about Buddha. We are reading it. But how did he gain that great knowledge? He's just supposed to have sat under a tree for a long time in silence. So much so that the mind fell in silence and the conscience opened itself to the universe, and all the knowledge was transferred in one instant. That is enlightenment, when suddenly you know everything. Spiritual enlightenment, just as Buddha, a lot of people went through it by just attaining very deep silence, where the mind itself stops to shout, where all what we know, our knowledge and choices, start to dissolve, and everything that we start to do is an act of universe, you know, being implemented through us. So next time when you or somebody else talks about a certain chapter from a certain part of the book, whatever book, yes, it is possible that we want to look learned, and it is good to recite from what you know. But for your own self, it is good to realize what you've just begun to know. Namaskar.